Thank you very much, everyone. I am super excited to be here about this new invitation to be in this conference because, like I said, I love it. And well, yes, Simon introduced me. I work for MongoDB right now. I am a senior solutions architect, but I'm also an Angular and web technologies Google developer expert. I am an Azure ambassador. I am a women tech maker. And yes, let's start with this session. So back last summer, I held a session at a C# Corner conference on how to code and how to build static web applications with Angular's dedicated generator Scala.io. I mean, you can generate static pages with Angular with other generators, but Scala is the one that was built specifically for this framework. So in this session, I will not go over how to do it because I have already done it, and for sure you can find this video in the C# platform, and I really recommend you watch it if you haven't. But we will still go over why static web pages are important in the current ecosystem, when they can be used, and for which or what type of solutions they are interesting, or what use cases. So I want to quickly mention before we continue that I also have an Azure Heroes badge for Inclusive Leader, myself. And if you tweet or post on LinkedIn mentioning me in the next couple of hours or 3 hours, adding the Azure Heroes hashtag and a screenshot of this conference, I will DM you right on Twitter with a code or a QR code that you can scan and get a learner's badge. And at the end of the conference, I'm going to tell you how you can get the kudos badge that is rare, right? Because the learner is more common, but the kudos one is more rare. And yes, I am also going to be handing out some of those. So I am sure everyone is, or you should be, if you work in web development, concerned about achieving great runtime performance. I was going to say runtime performance, but I want to stress that you really need to have great scores for the metrics that you're seeing on screen. Those metrics were released last year, I think around August or July, by Google. And they're the most important indicators right now for the Google index, right, on how performant a website is. And we all know that if a website is not really doing well with performance, it may be penalized at the time of appearing in the index. So let's focus on one particular metric that we're seeing. It's the CLS, or cumulative layout shift. And this metric represents the amount of pixels any item, any element in the page may be displaced from point A to point B, usually in the y-axis, during the loading time of the page. So the more it is displaced, the more it's increased by a certain factor. So if content is shifted a lot, like, I don't know, take this example, you have some text and you are loading a video, and then suddenly the video renders, and you don't have, or you're not implementing any kind of placeholder, any skeleton, you know that it's going to be, or the content, the text is going to be pushed down. Well, especially over the fold, right? For those cases, the CLS tends to be very high and the pages are obviously penalized, right? This happens, or this is very frequent for sites that are developed with dynamic frameworks like Angular, like React, like whatever Vue, and even when they are server-side rendered, because once you bootstrap your framework, it may be that things change. And you also have to, this is not connected to the talk right now, but you also have to be careful with the CLS when you, for example, are using web fonts, because at the time of rendering the font you're loading, you're requesting, it may be that you have some CLS as well. But we have alternatives to prevent the CLS to be very high. And this alternative that I'm going to suggest right now is specifically useful for a subset of sites. that are very, very good candidates to implement it. When a website's content is mostly static, or data is read-only, or even when a portion of the information tree content matches these characteristics, there is no interaction with the user, or it's integrated partially, we could think of a strategy of generating static pages, like back in the 90s, right? Nothing is dynamic, everything is static. Once content loads, there is no more moving or shifting things around. For example, a blog site or a documentation site, and even some pages of a more dynamic site, like product pages or news sections. If we have built our website with Angular, for example, specifically, the best option to generate, like we said, static pages is Scala, because it was designed and created for Angular. I want to tell you a little bit about Scala. Scala was released in a stable version last September. It's available for Angular 8 and up. You need to be using Node 10 and up. I hope everyone is anyway. And how does Scala work under the hood? Well, it uses Puppeteer. I don't know if you're familiar with Puppeteer, but it's an API that allows you to render dynamic pages as HTML content in a headless Chromium browser. So at build time, Scala does the whole data fetching, does all the logical operations that you may have designed for your application. It handles the routes, and then it produces this HTML static output, like we said, using Puppeteer, and then saves each route's content as a snapshot in the this/static folder, which is a default, but you can reconfigure it to be whatever you want or you need. Of course, it needs a router-enabled application to work, because like we said, basically it maps each route to a path, so the router links become regular links. And when you install Scala and you build the application, you can then run the static site generation in this way. By triggering this process, you're basically making use of a bunch of built-in plugins that take care of different concerns through its cycle. So you have the router handling plugins that you can see on the screen that basically take care of handling route discovery, then the render plugins that take care of transforming the HTML output, then the file handler plugins used by the inbuilt content folder plugins that are concerned with different file document extensions, for example, Markdown. And finally, you have the route discovery done and the all done plugins that can trigger scripts when those processes are completed. And apart from inbuilt plugins that come bundled together with Scala, it is very, very easy to write and integrate your own plugins. And that's it's not the only way to write them writing TypeScript. You can also extend Scala functionality with schematics. So you can use schematics to write your own custom functionality and achieve your desired output as a static page. Finally, another important feature of Scala is that it allows us to start a server to serve the static files and test at development time. And also, you can launch the regular dynamic Angular site. So you have both versions, and you can compare them, and you can debug them, and they're available to you to explore them. So what's the gain with static websites? So we gain in performance, in search engine optimization, probably in our indexing. We can embrace the Jamstack. I'm not going to go over what the Jamstack is, but you probably can find around some videos, or go back to that conference session I had in the summer. And we can also leverage the cloud infrastructure and the CDCI, or continuous development, continuous integration, that can be implemented when you are leveraging cloud infrastructure. Now, there are many services out there that we can use to deploy static apps and benefit from the Jamstack. And they're all cloud-based, obviously. And that means that we can also benefit from high availability across regions and zones. There are elastic solutions that can be scaled out and in and up and down, usually automatically with a few clicks. And they integrate very well with popular code hosting services like GitHub, for example. So you can implement DevOps strategies, like we said, and have automated CI. And the best of all is that the infrastructure is fully managed. So you don't have to worry about anything on that end. All maintenance, upgrades, etc. And infra is taken care by the services provisioning those resources, right? So basically being a web developer right now and producing static websites and hosting them somewhere is really, really simple and easy. During this demo, we will use Azure or as our platform as a service, which means our code will be on GitHub. And I have already a Scala web app coded and built. Again, to see how we do this, search and watch my talk on C# Corner. But in the following demo, we're going to, in a few minutes, build it, deploy it, and publish it using Azure Web Apps Service. More concretely, static web app service, directly from our GitHub code hosting. And we will also make sure that every time we push updates, and I hope it works because I tested it only once, our workflow republishes the app. So first of all, I want to quickly remind you that in order to start working with Azure, you need to have a setup consisting of a group management, a subscription, and more importantly, a resource group. So a good setup allows you to more efficiently use resources and reduce the billing in the cloud while applying the same governance policies to certain services and assets. Before I go to Azure, I also want to mention that there is now a general availability tool for the static web apps that is called Static Web Apps CLI. And it helps you with local development for static web apps, serving them in your local environment. This tool, as well as the scripts I will be using to build and deploy the Angular apps statically generated with Scala, were developed by Wasim Shegam. I don't know if you know him, but he's a great friend of the community. He's a developer advocate for Azure, and he's always available to answer questions and to help the community. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen quickly. And I'm going to, give me a moment, I'm going to reshare my screen, but a different desktop. I hope you can see it. There you go. So as you can see, we can see it, right? Yeah, Simon, thank you. So as you can see, I am on Azure right now. I am on the panel in the console on the home page. And what I want to do is I already have created a resource and I have a subscription, obviously. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to head directly to static web applications. And I don't have any. I'm going to create one. So create static web apps, and then it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty intuitive, if you wish. I am on the free trial. I want to stress that you don't have to pay anything for static web apps on Azure. Like you just create an account and you have this service free forever. I think it's forever, but at least for sure for 12 months it's free. So it's going to ask me what is the resource group I want to use. I'm going to choose Amphibia Creativa _dev. That's my resource group for all my static web apps. And then it's going to ask me for a name. I'm going to use what's already in the autocomplete. And this is the most important part. Obviously, if I want to keep it free, I will select free for hobby or personal projects. Obviously, if it's a commercial project, you are going to have to choose standard, and because it's going to be a general purpose production app, you may have to pay a certain fee. depending on the tier. So I'm going to keep it in Central US. You're gonna have to choose the region that is more suitable for you. And then it's going to ask me where I want to deploy my code from. And I'm going to choose GitHub. I'm gonna have to sign in. So it's going to ask me to authorize. Oh, it's asking me the password. Okay, I'm glad I kept it at hand because I wasn't sure. For a while, it doesn't ask you for the password, but after some time, probably it needs it again. Sorry. I also have, oh, okay, didn't ask me for that. Okay, I thought it was going to ask me for the one-time password, but it doesn't. So it's also asking me to choose which organization I need to, or I'm going to be deploying my code from. I have a few, so I'm going to choose Amphibia Creativa, which is my personal organization, myself. And then it will ask me which repository. And we're going to look for this balloon application. And then we have to select the branch, in my case, develop. And then it's going to ask me about the build presets. And that's the important part because if you go to see here under static site generator, there is no Scala. There is Gatsby, Hugo, and ViewPress, but no Scala. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Angular. And then over here in application, we just don't change this. Here we can just write API, but I don't have an API. I'm not consuming any dynamic data. What is important to change is the output location, because what Scala does is it puts all the static distribution in the test/static folder. So we need to let Azure know about that. And then it's going to ask me if I want to preview the workflow file. The workflow file is a file that is going to allow me to automatically deploy and leverage continuous integration and continuous deployment. So I'm not going to preview it. I'm just going to say, okay, review and create. So it's going to be creating, and what's going to be doing as well. If we go here, I want to show you is that it says it's initializing the deployment, and it's submitting the deployment template for the resource group. It says the deployment is in progress. And what it should be doing right now is it should be also committing the workflow file. Go to the resource. So let's also reload this. And as you can see in my GitHub, because I gave it permissions, it created this workflows folder, and it's also committed the workflow file. This workflow file right now, it's not going to be working. So if we go to the URL, because we also get a default URL where we can visit the publish site. If I go here, it's going to tell me your Azure static web app is live and waiting for content, but I already have content. However, because there is really no way for the system to understand how to use Scala at the moment, because there is no default preset, I need to update this workflow file. So we're going to do this directly directly here. But I also want to tell you one thing. To make this work, like I said before, we need some custom scripts, and we need them again because there is no default. So if we go to the code over here, we'll see that I have a folder here that is called scripts, and there is Setup, Puppeteer, and Workbox Build.js. This is going. You can find this in my GitHub/Amphibia Creativa. you will need to use this. You will need to put these scripts in place in order to have this working. But let's go back to the workflows. And we're going to update this YAML file directly in GitHub so we can have this deployed. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the jobs. We're going to find the steps. And here where it says build and deploy, which is the default build job, we're going to add a command that it's going to override this default deployment. So I have it over there written because I cannot remember this by heart. So we're going to write a build. Make sure it's in the right place because YAML is very sensitive to where you are typing. So a build command. And we're going to tell it that it needs to echo empty. And what's going to happen is that after we add this new app build command, it's going to completely ignore this build and deploy part of the workflow. And then we're going to add a new name over here before this one, before the default one. And we're going to call this one build and deploy Angular and Scala. We're going to give it an ID of build Angular Scala. And we're going to pass the command we want to use to build the static site and deploy it. So first of all, we need to make sure that we are installing everything. We also need to make sure that we are building Angular. We want the production binary, so we're going to pass a prod flag. And finally, we're going to run Scala. And we're going to tell it to scan routes every time in case we are pushing new markdown, new content. So it finds these routes and it can recreate the site. So this is all, but we still miss one point. We need to tell it to use those scripts that we have in the repository. So this is a part where I really don't want to mess up. So we're going to pass emp because we're going to be passing a new pre-build environment variable, pre-build command. And here is where we're going to pass the path to the scripts. And the script is called concretely setup puppeteer. Okay, so let's hope I did it correctly because YAML is such a pain sometimes, and I really wanted to write it all down and make sure I wasn't wasting your time with trial and errors. So I'm going to commit this, and I'm going to commit it directly to the develop branch, and that should, if we go to actions, that should queue this for deployment. And if we go over here, okay, we will need to wait until this completes. It takes a while because right now it's installing all the dependencies, it is building Angular, it is outputting the production binary, and then on top of that, it's going to be running Scala, and it's going to be discovering all the routes, and it's going to be generating all the content. So once we do all this, hopefully over here, we are going to see the site. For now, there are no errors. As you can see, this is my trial a few hours ago. This is the first one when it fails, because it's this one. It's the equivalent of this one, the first one, when it first commits the workflow and attempts to build the site, but it couldn't do it. And then I did an update, and then it worked. So it's going on. I don't know if there are any questions. Time to wrap. Oh, okay. I hope if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work, that we don't have enough time, because I don't want Simon to get mad. I'm going to post the link here in my Twitter, so you can go and see that it effectively worked. And you can go to this repository also and grab the scripts and rewatch this and attempt it yourself, and you can see how easy it is to build a static site and deploy it to Azure with Angular and Scala. Simon, if you want to come back whenever you say, no problem.
All right, Natalia, I'll just step in. I know it's going to take time, right? It does take time, actually.
It takes, over here, it took, I don't know, some 8 minutes. So it might, because it's only 2 into the process, but okay. Yeah, this is something we cannot speed up, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to take my word for it that it's going to work and it's going to deploy it.
I mean, we trust you. We trust you blindly. It's gonna work. Demos have never failed. That it's definitely going to work. There are no demo demons. So that was good. I know Azure Static Web Apps came almost like a year back. I still remember, and people have adopted it a lot, and looks like a great success. People have been building some great projects with that. Did it build until it built? I know we are only 7 minutes in your session. The next speaker is gonna kill me.
Yeah, no. It's okay. I'm going to leave the site up for a few hours so people can just go to my GitHub, Amphibia Creativa /Balloon Apps, to the actions, see how it actually built, and then I'll post also this URL so they can watch it.
And I believe a couple of guys and girls did tweet. I see it coming on Twitter. People need Azure badge.
Yeah, they are going to get their badge. And if you want the kudos badge, you have to do the same. You have to do this and send me the link to your repository, and then I will send the kudos badge. So it did finish. It did finish. Yeah. So it did complete. So now, okay. So now, as you can see, we have the application already published. What I wanted to say is also, if I would make changes or create a new Markdown file and push it to my repository, this would make sure that the site is rebuilt and the new page is visible also and published as well. So yes, it worked. Thank you very much, everyone.